Not too often that I get to review arcade machines on this show, but thanks to our friends at New Wave Toys and their RepliCade line, I do get to talk about arcade machines. Now, they recently sent me the Street Fighter II Championship Edition arcade machine, but it's actually an arcade system because... Oh, we've got Kurt sitting here beside me. Thank you, Blake. Kurt is playing Street Fighter, and I'll ask him what he thinks of the game in a second here. But the Street Fighter II Championship Edition arcade, you can actually get a version of this. I don't know if this is the only way that you can get it. You might be able to get it without this extra device, but it comes with an extra controller. It's a two-player game, so you'd want to be able to play it with somebody else. And it has USB inputs on the back so that you can plug this in and play two-player fighting games with a buddy. You can also plug in regular controllers into those USB ports in the back of this thing, and you can store the controller in the back of the cabinet. The idea behind these cabinets, they've sent me two, Tempest and Street Fighter II Championship Edition, is that they're collector's items for sure, but they're fully playable with scale. They're 1/6 scale models of the parts and the systems, and the Street Fighter II game actually comes with the manual, the arcade operator's manual, so you can flip the switches on the controller and adjust the settings the way that you would want to play Championship Edition. There's also another version of Street Fighter II on here. You get Super Street Fighter II Turbo on there with its gameplay and character allotments. And it's really remarkable. They've got lots of great details like the coin slots. And if you press in on the coin slots, they obviously don't take real coins, but you can press in on them and they'll be adding extra lives basically, so you can start the game over again. You can also flip open the where the coins would be, and you can store stuff in there if you want. I guess a token or a quarter or whatever you want to do. But I got to tell you, like the build quality is pretty damn impressive on both of these little mini arcade systems. They feel great. It's got the functional kind of switch joystick controls that you want. It's based, super micro little tiny buttons, but they feel solid. They feel like what you would feel tapping on an arcade button, just shrunk down. It's almost like these have been put into like a shrink ray system or something like that. It's really, really impressive. And also the cabinetry and everything like that's made out of wood. They actually sound pretty damn good for these, the size of the speakers. They sound accurate to what you would hear in an arcade. Obviously, it's a little bit shrunk down. And you can play the game. It is a bit weird to put your hands, your big hands in front of this tiny screen and play the game that way. So honestly, I preferred starting a two-player game, letting the first match, fade away, and then playing on this controller away from the screen, which you can do. And the fact that you can plug in a couple of extra controllers into the Street Fighter cabinet and play with regular controllers if you want is pretty damn impressive. You can also kick back to the operator menu and adjust stuff so that this plays exactly the way that you want to. Tempest, you have less functionality that way, but one of the great things that they did with Tempest, and I'll flip this around here a little bit, is they gave you the paddle controls of this classic game. I'm actually a bigger fan of Tempest than I am of Street Fighter II. I know that's sacrilege, but Tempest was such a landmark game for me. It was a vector-based game back in the 80s, and it just blew my mind. It was, it kind of created a pseudo 3D effect, and I love it. Obviously, didn't have the staying power that Street Fighter did, but Jeff Minter created these fantastic odes to Tempest with Tempest 2000 on the Atari Jaguar, and most recently you can play Tempest 4000. It's a shame that Tempest doesn't have the more modern Minter versions available on here. I imagine that people out there with some hacking skills could probably get into the OS of this and put some other stuff on there if they wanted to. But the fact that you get the 80s arcade game and it's wonderful and it's accurate and the cabinetry art is all there. It's all lit up. I think that the cabinet of the Tempest machine looks cooler to me, but I totally get that probably more people are going to fawn over the whole Street Fighter thing. I love Street Fighter as well. It's just the Tempest really speaks to me. So I think the coolest thing about these little mini cabinets is their collectability and the way that they look. You can certainly have fun on them, but I feel like the way that you would have fun on them is that they're on your desk or they're on a bookshelf behind your desk, and when you've got a few minutes, when you're not working on schoolwork or work, you take it off the shelf and you have a quick little game of something that you love, something that really kind of speaks to you. And then other than that, it would be standing up maybe with other action figures or something like that, and it just looks so damn cool, especially when you've got, a couple of them. Or 2 or 3 of them, and they're all lit up, so you have like this little functioning mini arcade. They've done an amazing job with that. It's really, you can tell that these were crafted with love, and they were crafted with, in partnership with the rights holders and the people that want to see this stuff done properly. To get these machines, though, it's not inexpensive. The Street Fighter 2 cabinet comes with the controller for $120 US. About 170, I think, when you do all the conversions. I just looked it up on Activision or on Amazon. Tempest is a little bit less because it doesn't have all the features of Street Fighter, and you also don't have to get an extra controller with Tempest as well. They are incredible, though, and I think of the younger me that went to arcades and freaked out over games like this, and they were all sort of the building blocks that got me on the way to actually creating Electric Playground, was falling in love with video games this way. To think that the younger version of me would ever one day have little miniaturized versions of these arcade machines just blows my mind. I think New Wave and RepliCade have done an amazing job with these, and I'm definitely keeping my eyes out for other arcade systems that I love with them, and I'll report back my thoughts on how they have fared, and presumably they'll keep learning how to manufacture these things with even greater detail, and they'll just keep getting better, as everything does in the video game industry. But so far, I think they've done an amazing job with these. They're not cheap, and I know that they're not for everybody, but I think they're wonderful. I would give the Street Fighter 2 Championship Edition arcade machine with the extra controller, because it has more stuff, and I think it's a little bit more state-of-the-art for what they're doing with these mini arcade cabinets. I give that an 8.5, and even though I prefer the game of Tempest, I'd give the Tempest cabinet an 8 out of 10. And great job, RepliCade. These are wonderful.